Hey guys, it's Ole here from IncntrolGaming, and I've got a top 10 video list for you here today. What I thought would be interesting is if I talked about my top 10 favorite PS3 games of all time. Now keep in mind, this is my own personal list, and I'm sure you guys are going to have differing opinions from mine. It would be great if you could put those in the comments section below. But anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Thanks for watching, guys. Whatever you may think of the current standard of Call of Duty, there is simply no denying that the granddaddy of them all, Modern Warfare, was a watershed moment for games. It practically revived the FPS genre to create the benchmark for multiplayer gaming and setting the trend for bombastic shooter campaign design. From the sniping level of all gillied up to the opening tanker scene during a rainy night with the now iconic Sergeant Soap McTavish. This was an FPS campaign that treated its subject material of modern war seriously, while still having the needed elements of a summer blockbuster with fun set pieces to play in. Ushering the new age of FPS multiplayer was this game's crowning achievement, with the fast-paced, addictive combat being wonderful to play against others online. Sure, later COD games would flesh out the formula with further kill streaks, perks, etc., but the simplicity of the original is what made it so special to me in the first place. It probably also helps that this was one of my first multiplayer games that I played on the PS3, and there was something magical about that. But the game itself has not aged, as evidenced by the remaster now available for current gen. This is pure streamlined entertainment, with no fluff in its 8-hour campaign and a gameplay loop that stands the test of time in the online shooter realm. No dialogue, no overt plot, no combat, no way to die. Yet has any game ever provided a more complete experience filled with so many agonized, terrifying lows and such jubilant, exhilarating moments of joy? Well, sure, but not many of them. That game company's journey is a masterpiece of abstract storytelling, emotion through gameplay, and exquisitely beautiful world building. Its freeform exploration and platform puzzling are captivating in themselves, but every single element of Journey, from visuals to sound design to the very feel of control, is precisely designed to evoke deep and affecting meaning every step of the way. As for its anonymous cooperative multiplayer, well, that was another stroke of genius that essentially made players communicate through a solitary button to call out, and remarkably, it worked, as the existence of trolls in the game is near absent. A strong contender for one of the best independent games ever made, Journey's beautifully arresting art style, subtle storytelling methods, and freeform exploration were a landmark in showing the powerful art form of video games beyond the gaming masses, but even to casual players and others who normally wouldn't take a second look at a video game screen on any day. This was my first introduction to the space opera series starring Commander Shepard and his Normandy crew in their fight against the Reaper menace, an RPG that delivered the future and sexy space travel I had never known I wanted. Mass Effect 2 is one of the best RPGs of the entire generation, even considering its polished older brother Mass Effect 3. It kicks off with a ballsy start, essentially killing off Shepard and ripping the Normandy to pieces. The remainder is about rebuilding and redemption, as you cobble together a lovable crew of misfits to tackle a heroic suicide mission. The overarching story provides the pace and structure, while the more personal stories on board the Normandy pull you in different emotional directions. Do you side with Miranda or Jack? The Geth of the Quarians? Can you save your crew from the Collectors? Who, if anyone, will you sacrifice in the suicide mission? While many games do give players choices, few offer the same level of involvement with the plot, thereby adding immense weight to the decisions you make. It all adds up to a wonderful self-contained story that truly conveys the highs and lows of being a hero. It's also great that the RPG shooter gameplay is slick and pleasing to tinker with, creating different builds that are complementary with your squad mates, or that the game has the amazing and distinctive sci-fi visuals and offers incredible scale. Yes, Mass Effect 2 was one of the best RPGs on the PS3. Okay, so I may be cheating a little bit here, including two games in one spot, but I just feel that these two indie games combined create the real Hotline Miami experience. Set in the late 1980s, this is a top-down pixel art, beautifully violent experience, where players don a rubber mask, taking out the Russian mob with a variety of melee and firing weapons that down enemies in one kill, while being able to be killed in one hit in return. What results is a rhythmic and cerebral gameplay experience with you trying to clear entire levels of enemies without taking a hit. These levels, or murder carnivals as I like to call them, pulsate with color reflective of the 80s setting. The story across both games is another shining factor, with it being mysterious and downright creepy as you learn the truth of why you're doing what you do and just where the instructions to take out these mob bosses is coming from. What elevates these games to a generation-defining status is the absolutely monstrous synthwave soundtrack that plays in every level. I truly consider this one of the greatest OSTs ever crafted, with the developers selecting a myriad of synth composers to facilitate all the delicious carnage you engage in and helping place you in a trance during the rhythmic gameplay. I love these games as much for the amazing gameplay as the soundtrack that's a pure orgasm for the ears. Hotline Miami is easily one of the greatest indie games ever made and deserves its spot on any top 10 list from the PS3 era. It's raw, punk fury, a hypnotic display of ultra-violence, one step away from pure unadulterated anarchy. Just don't tell your parents about it. Oh, and the perfect home for this game was and always has been the PS Vita. Vita means life. Agony is the only word I can use to describe picking between Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, as both were generation-defining games that proved AAA superhero games could be executed to a near-flawless quality without relying on a movie tie-in for quick and easy sales. In the end, I'm shading Asylum just a tad in front, with Asylum just being a groundbreaking experience for the time in 2009, establishing Rocksteady's tenets of the Batman formula, which were admittedly expounded upon and refined in Arkham City. The thing is, Arkham Asylum is an incredible achievement in portraying the Bat, Joker, Harley, Two-Face, Killer Croc, etc., especially as a first attempt by the studio. The setting of Arkham Asylum is the star of the show in my eyes, allowing Rocksteady to play with clever level design in every ward of the asylum and applying a Metroidvania flavor to new areas being accessible to Batman as he gains new gadgets. The entire island of Arkham is a labyrinth of nooks and crannies with hidden world-building lore around Gotham and the asylum, as well as deceptively hidden Riddler trophies to obtain. The genius in the level design is how Arkham just folds in on itself in a multitude of ways. Key to this game being such a triumph is the voice acting on display, with stalwarts Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as Joker reprising their roles from the animated series and setting the tone for the quality amongst themselves in the entire cast. Boss battles were key and expertly crafted so that Batman had to create different strategies and use his gadgets in unique ways to take out bosses. For example, Poison Ivy requires explosive spray to crack her out her plant shell to fight, or the fear-inducing hide-and-seek shenanigans with Scarecrow from a transformed 2D perspective at certain points through the game. Although the game's ending sequence is something I consider a little subpar, especially after all the awesome scenarios Batman has been placed in, Arkham Asylum is ultimately a game that served as a groundbreaking foundation for proving that superhero games could be made right. Dead Space 2 is what I would consider the perfect sequel to a new IP, carefully crafting the perfect balance from the game's first horror aspects and injecting a bit of action into the mix. This is close to an RE4 successor we are likely to see for a very long while. The horror is very much real for protagonist Isaac Clarke in Dead Space 2 against the Necromorphs, but thankfully Isaac is now more capable of fighting back. Once again, aboard the necromorph-infested Ishimura space station, Isaac Clarke must strategically dismember limbs and find out the reason why these horrific creatures exist, and the eerily religious cult on board supporting this transformation. Dead Space 2 delivered trouser-crapping moments aplenty, with the new monsters added, along with new gameplay twists such as anti-gravity rooms, more brain-tickling puzzles, and a larger space station to explore. The risk-reward of exploration to gain new items to upgrade weapons and your suit versus trudging ahead simply to conserve ammo is the exact type of delightful push-pull gameplay mechanics I enjoy in my games. It's ultimately a shame that Visceral Games, the studio behind the Dead Space series, was shut down in 2018 after their failed Star Wars games, and thus we will not get another Dead Space game for a very long while. But in Dead Space 2, the studio can always be proud for masterminding one of the best action horror games ever made on the PS3. Is Red Dead Redemption a better game than GTA 5? It's a close call. While GTA San Andreas is a more densely detailed world, there's a certain beauty to the concept and story of Red Dead that just tips it for me. Few other games create such a glorious sense of time and place. All your actions and interactions within its rugged landscapes just make sense, and is the perfect backdrop for John Marston's tough tale of injustice and loss, a narrative that climaxes in one of the boldest, most memorable endings of any game ever. It was also just plain good old fun to finally roleplay as a cowboy, rounding up outlaws for bounty, breaking in horses, slamming a few whiskeys at the town saloon before hilariously lassoing the bartender and just being an outright badass. Its epic story of Marston's cause to round up members of his old gang enabled Rockstar to showcase its amazing storytelling prowess that is so clearly influenced by cinema. Set pieces were ripped straight out of classic Western cinema with an understated soundtrack that perfectly suited the atmosphere Rockstar was aiming to achieve. Thank God Red Dead Redemption 2 is around the corner, as I can't wait to get back to the Old West. A satisfying conclusion to the Kratos Greek Odyssey that I had been heavily anticipating for years since God of War 2's epic cliffhanger ending. This was a game that delivered in every way for fans of the series, resolving Kratos' revenge against the Greek gods in as brutal a fashion as you'd expect. SSM Studios spared no expense in crafting this masterpiece, allowing us as Kratos to poke Poseidon's eyes out just in the climactic opening to ripping off Hermes' lower legs to claim his speed boots. The God of War formula in terms of combat was reaching its zenith in God of War 3, with Santa Monica Studio managing to successfully add more weapons and magic to the Kratos arsenal from all the Greek gods slaughtered, enabling gameplay to take center stage alongside the beautifully rendered world of ancient Greece. With improved technology of the PS3 over the PS2, a clear push was made to extend the grand scale of the series, and boy oh boy did Santa Monica deliver just in the legendary opening boss battle with Poseidon alone, as you fight alongside Gaia on her back and other titans scaling Mount Olympus. Lest we forget what I consider one of the best boss battles of the series against Kronos, which to this day is still awe-inspiring in its size whenever I replay that section of the game. Yes, I don't get tired of ripping off Kronos' nails, fighting minions on his arm as his gargantuan frame fills the background, or finally impaling his iron spike collar through his throat. God of War is just an amazing send-off to Kratos' Greek Odyssey. Killzone 2 is what I consider one of the greatest first-person shooters of all time, so it easily slots into second place here. Killzone 2 rose from the ashes from its infamous E3 2005 debut trailer to prove itself as one of the most outstanding, immersive, and technologically advanced shooters at the time. The key to this game's strength beyond its beautiful graphics depicting a war-torn planet was in the gameplay department. Shooting in Killzone 2 had a distinctly weighty and meaty feel to it, whether it was when raising, aiming, and firing your weapons or moving around, that I found to be incredibly realistic to the war it aimed to portray. This created a satisfaction to shooting enemies, which had very realistic hit animations to bullet hits. The heft of the weaponry was immersive to anchoring your ISA soldiers to the world. Beyond the campaign, the gameplay was excellently showcased through what I believe to be one of the best online multiplayer suites ever made. Through Warzone, Guerrilla Games created a mode with ever-changing objectives within a single match, which created really unique games nearly every time you went online and was a breath of fresh air in console multiplayer. In one moment, you'd be playing regular deathmatch before the game changes to VIP assassination, then swap over to conquest-style capture and hold game type, and then culminating in a bomb defusal objective. This created swings in many multiplayer games where the prospect of winning or losing a full match could always be on the cards. A special mention as well should go to the map design, which was near flawless, crafted to support all these different game modes at once, with changing weather patterns in some maps further affecting gameplay, such as snow impacting visibility. Killzone 2 was just an incredible FPS feat for Guerrilla on the PS3, and I need my remaster on the PS4 ASAP, Sony. It feels incredibly fitting that the PlayStation 3's best game would arrive at the end of its life cycle. After Naughty Dog's magnificent action-adventure exploits in the world of Uncharted, the studio felt it was time to deliver another new IP for the system, leading to what many critics and gamers would call one of the greatest games ever made in 2013. This was the culmination of everything AAA games ascribed to in one package: incredible mature storytelling, gameplay-driven narrative, beautifully engineered graphics for as much emotional resonance as possible, and an addictive, unique multiplayer mode to be played for years. Naughty Dog flexed their growing studio pedigree with a gritty take on a post-apocalyptic future where fungus infecting humans had led to the collapse of society, establishing two characters in Joel and Ellie who go on a trek across Midwest America as they fight with the infected and non-infected humans with brutal and at times gruesome combat scenarios, providing players with the tools to strategize in nearly every encounter. From the powerfully gripping opening of the game until its sobering concluding scene, The Last of Us was a title that indelibly left its mark on the industry and was another marker in the sand for looking at games as art. I can't count the number of times I've replayed The Last of Us, and I've had so many scenes choke me emotionally or enjoyed the satisfying crunch of laying Joel's spiked baseball bat into a scavenger's head, or even the dreaded thrill of sneaking around the infected in a visually arresting environment. This is a masterpiece of a game that should be played by everyone who has owned a PS3 or even a PS4. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and smash that like button and don't forget to share with your friends.
And remember to click that subscribe button and click the bell icon so that you get notifications.